So today I'm going to platinum Resident Evil 3 Nemesis on the PS2, not the remake. We're playing the original. I recently platinumed Resident Evil 3 and it made me wonder, could the same be done with the original 1999 game, using the remake's trophies? So I booted up my dusty PS2 and I tried it again.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
I still remember the feeling of getting my first PS2 as a kid. Unwrapping the box, seeing it for the first time. For a little Hungarian guy growing up in a normal middle-class family, this was a huge moment. From that day on, I was hooked on gaming. I'd play hours upon hours of Crash Bandicoot with the neighbor kid, and of course also GTA, even though my parents didn't really like it. PS, they didn't know. Come on, do I even need to say anything? Don't tell me I was the only one who was in love with her as a kid. So that's why I created this list of PS2 games, and this isn't even all of them. So join me on my journey, where I platinum my childhood games, and probably yours too, and also games I didn't even really dare to touch as a kid. To platinum the original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, you'll need about 3.5 playthroughs, which takes roughly 20 hours. At best, if you don't mess up like I did. Since a lot of things were changed in the remake, I had to remove a few trophies from the list, like collecting the Charlie dolls and some of the extra difficulty trophies. That leaves us with 29 trophies, including the platinum, instead of 33. In the original, you only have two options: easy, which is basically the standard difficulty, and hard, which I treated as Inferno. With these adjustments, the platinum is absolutely possible, but it's definitely harder than in the remake, which is a 3 out of 10 difficulty. The original? I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10, mostly because of the PS2 controls and the checkpoint system. There isn't any checkpoint system. And completing the game under 2 hours, it's still haunting me. For the second run I decided to do a no healing run, because I knew I'd need those healing items later. No, that's not funny. Oh my god, that's not funny. I also went for the collectibles at the same time, and oh boy, I already wanted to give up on this one, and we weren't even at the worst part yet. The game starts with a cutscene showing the chaos caused by a company called Umbrella Corporation. They were experimenting with a bioweapon, the experiment went wrong, and the T-virus got leaked and turned the whole city into a horde of brainless zombies. This is the story of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Then we cut to our character, and before we even get to control the game, we already earn our first trophy, escaping the apartment. We then meet Dario Rosso, who must be really important to the franchise, because of course he was also featured in the remake. But yeah, his brilliant plan is to lock himself inside a container and wait for the virus to just go away. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work out. And meanwhile Jill Valentine has this other brilliant idea to go outside, where the many zombies are. Honestly, I think I'm on Team Dario for this one. I might be just also dumb. Natural selection. And obviously there is no one on the streets apart from a couple of zombies, until we meet Brad Vickers, another STARS member, just like Jill Valentine. And yes, he gets bitten by a zombie, which we will need for another trophy. Brad tells us about something that's after the STARS members, but we don't know what it is yet. I mean, it's not like it's not on the game's cover or anything. Shortly after that, as we progress to the police station, we see Brad really injured. And we also can take a first glance at the Nemesis, how he looks like, and I really like this design, I really like this design. So yeah, he takes Brad and we get our second trophy. Finally, after a couple of attempts, I could finish him off, and I totally forget about that on easy mode he doesn't drop any weapons parts, so I couldn't get the Kendo's army trophies. So yeah, this is needed for 2 trophies. One is Gunsmith, for upgrading any weapon, and 2 for Kendo's army for collecting all the weapons. In the police station I needed to find a key and go upstairs, but a whole horde of zombies had other plans. I swear, at what hitbox could the zombie hit me, but I couldn't hit him? My god, I actually had to kill myself here because I couldn't afford to waste any healing items, at least not before the clock tower fight. When I finally opened the door, this room turned out to be really important. This is where you can find either the grenade launcher or the Magnum. And it's also where Carlos Oliveira calls you for the first time, the other playable character. As we push deeper into the city, we meet a new enemy type, the zombie dogs. And I was already so pissed at these things, they sabotage this run so many times, because if they hit you once, you're already in caution, which gives you about 10% movement slowdown, and that's basically a death sentence in the Nemesis fight later on. We make our way to this press building where we find a guy absolutely knocked out by a food coma. Yeah, this is Carlos.
Relax. You're fine.
If you say so, but my head feels like it's about to explode.
Our little moment of romance gets interrupted by Nemesis, of course, but while I was looting the place, something really funny happened. Nemesis was only chasing Carlos the whole time, so I just casually walked out the door. And for that, I got my next story trophy, which was ironically called Somebody to Lean On. It really should have been called Somebody to Leave Behind. Then we need to insert the 2 gemstones into this machine, which unlocks the gate to Raccoon City Hall, and also gives us the Power Stones trophy. We meet more Umbrella soldiers like Mikhail and Nikolai. Nikolai explains the plan. We need to use this tram to get to the clock tower, which is our extraction point. Only problem? The tram doesn't work. So we have to go back downtown and search for the parts to repair it. To help us out, Carlos gives us a hip pouch, which also earns us our next trophy. And by the way, I love these old goofy dialogues, so take a listen.
How did a girl like you manage to survive?
Hey, I'm no ordinary civvy. I'm a member of STARS.
To get the tram running, we need 4 parts. 2 oils that need to be mixed together, a fuse, and a car battery cable. Simple plan, very Resident Evil. To get the first oil, you're going to need to solve this puzzle, which I still don't know how this works till today. Next, I needed an item to put into the statue's hand, which then gives me the battery I can use in the elevator to reach the next area. And basically, if you still don't know how a Resident Evil game works, it's like this. You need an item to get another item, which you need to reach a puzzle, then you solve the puzzle and get the next item you need. And this repeats, but it's actually much more fun than it sounds. Fantastic. So yeah, first I had to turn on the electricity and then solve 2 small puzzles. This is where you can get the fuse and the grenade launcher. Big shout out to this guy for covering every possible solution. Show him some love. After picking up the wrench from the tram, I went back to remove the fire hose from the wall so I could put out the fire. That leads us to another building whose only real purpose is to show how much of an asshole Nikolai really is, because he killed this guy.
What did you do?
I had no choice. He was about to turn into a zombie. It would have been a threat, so I eliminated it.
And here I committed the ultimate Resident Evil sin. I wasted Magnum ammo for inventory space. Please don't cancel me, it was only easy mode. On the way back, Nemesis tries to retro jumpscare us a couple of times, but honestly, you can just ignore him. The worst part is this short sewer section, where you have to turn on 2 switches and then climb back up the ladder. It's honestly completely unnecessary. It feels like it's only there to get you damaged. And on the no-hill run, this part was way more tense, because I still remember how many times I died here on my first hard playthrough. Jill just doesn't move the way you want her to on the PS2. And since I was already in caution, I knew that one more hit would send me back to the last save point, so I really didn't want to die here. On my first attempt I actually got hit and dropped into danger. I thought my save was too far away, so I decided to keep going anyway. That did not work out, so I let the crows kill me to reset the checkpoint and redo this section without taking a hit. The clip you just saw was a second attempt, that's why Jill is already in danger during the next cutscenes. But since I reloaded the last checkpoint, the no-hill run was still intact, so I get back on caution. But just as we finally get the tram going, Nemesis shows up to ruin the mood again. And somehow Mikhail and Jill still have the time to calmly talk things out, while the Nemesis is literally in the same wagon. Sometimes I really don't understand this game, but I love it so much.
Now!
Mikhail, wait, don't!
Get out of here! Hurry!
Mikhail sacrifices himself, causing the whole tram to derail and forcing us to choose between using the emergency brake or jump out of the window. So I choose to jump out of the window, which was actually the worst possible decision I could have ever made here. But hey, past me didn't know that yet. Our task is now to reach the top of the clock tower and ring the bell to signal the helicopter. But first, I have to make my way through this castle-like section. And by the way, this area really reminds me of the Castle Dimitrescu from Resident Evil Village. Oh, and yeah, if you have arachnophobia, good luck with this section. As you can see, by the time I reached the top of the clock tower, my health was down to danger. So yeah, this was the point where I really had no choice. I had to use my first and only healing item. The extraction didn't really work out because Nemesis shows up again, this time with a rocket launcher, and shoots the helicopter out of the sky. And just like that, I'm completely alone against the Nemesis. This fight showed no mercy. At first, I actually tried to do it on danger health, which basically meant no hits allowed. And normally after the Carlos section, Jill gets fully healed again, so the free heal would have helped a lot. But honestly, doing this hitless on PS2 with my skills was just not happening. So this time I used the spray, and this happened. Oh, wait, editor me here, hi. While rewatching the footage, I noticed a little lore inconsistency. You can see me running around on caution again before healing. And no, I didn't heal twice. I actually reloaded a save file and replayed this section because I had absolutely no chance in danger. So my health is slightly better here, just clearing it before someone writes a 3-page comment about it. After the fight, Jill Valentine collapses. The virus knocks her unconscious. Carlos carries her back to the safe room, and with that, the Carlos section begins. Also known as the Hunter section. I think I'm the only one who calls that so bad. Anyways, basically we need to solve a puzzle to get the vaccine base, which we then have to take to the machine and combine it with the serum. But messing around with the machine has a little side effect. It drains the liquid from the Hunter capsules, and yeah, that means they come to life. I finally got the serum that I needed, so the only thing I needed to do was to get back to Jill. But this is easier said than done. Oh my god, I almost died there. As he jumped, my heart was beating so fast I couldn't even explain. As we reached the main entrance of the hospital, we discovered that Nikolai planted a bomb on one of the pillars while we were inside. We actually ran into him earlier, when he was about to finish off Tyrell. But Tyrell pulled out a grenade and sacrificed himself, while Nikolai casually jumped through the window and escaped. Carlos also escapes the bomb, and I still can't believe that this game was made in 1999. But this animation looks really good even today. Carlos gets back to Jill and uses the antidote. He also tells her that Nikolai is still alive and that she shouldn't trust him because, you know, he's the bad guy. Should have been obvious at least by now. And with that, we earn our next story trophy, I Need a Hero, and get a nice full health reset. Because Carlos pushed the bell out of the way earlier, Jill can now move forward. This takes us to the last lockpick door, which gives us the next trophy, for unlocking every lockpick. Jill then continues deeper into the city and makes her way through a park section, which of course comes with a few classic Resident Evil style puzzles. Then we find ourselves in a wooden shack, and this shack is meant to be a UBCS fallback point. a supposed safe place. At this point, Jill Valentine still trusts them and believes they are helping civilians. That illusion breaks when she meets Nikolai. He's working for Umbrella Corporation collecting combat data, letting his own soldiers get butchered by mutants and zombies, and keeping Jill alive on purpose. This is the moment she stops being rescued and becomes a part of the experiment. Shortly after this, the ground starts shaking under Jill's feet, and suddenly a dune worm looking thing shows up, and yeah, it really wants to eat us alive. Probably because we don't look like Zendaya.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
So we have to fight Gravedigger. Now this fight can go two ways. You can either survive long enough by dodging attacks until the game lets you through, or you can actually kill it. Doing this without taking damage was really hard for me, so I decided to take a hit and push through on caution. This meant harder boss fights later, but I took the risk. And fun fact, if you want to know what it is, here is a little summary, and these little ones are the same creatures, so pause the video and zoom in if you're interested. After that, we find ourselves at an abandoned Umbrella facility guarded by Nemesis, and as I push him off the suspension bridge, I earn my next trophy, the Pursuer. Then we meet Carlos once again, who somehow magically appears everywhere we go. Anyway, he tells us that to cover their tracks, UBCS is launching a nuclear missile at the city to wipe out everything. And yeah, as we know, 30 years later, nothing really changed.
Everyone's gone.
Stay away from that!
So for one last time we have to reach an extraction point once again, and this is our last chance to leave the city before it explodes. And to do that, we need to go through this abandoned facility completely filled with monsters and of course, Nemesis. The next challenge I needed to do was turning on the power in under 5 minutes, which is actually much easier than in the remake. In fact, it's not even really the same task, but hey, here's the trophy. And now we can finally use the lift and open the door with the next puzzle. And oh my god, I did not expect this elevator to give me such a hard time. This one bug would always spawn right in front of the door, and before I could even do anything, it grabbed me and drained my health straight down to danger. I was really starting to lose it here, but eventually I managed to get through this section and I immediately went back to save the game. Like instantly. At this point I was saving after almost every enemy, because I knew how close I was to the end. I got jump scared hard by a hunter here and died twice in this section, and honestly it felt kind of unfair that the hunter could hit me but somehow I couldn't hit him. The hitbox is kind of weird in these old games. At that point I swear the game felt bad for me, because on the third try it spawned those worms instead, and I finally made it through. I went through the door, and of course Nikolai is there again shooting at us. But for once Nemesis actually helped us out by absolutely obliterating him. I knew he still had some good in him. This scene was so goofy, I love it. We fight Nemesis one more time, and honestly I was terrified of this fight, but somehow I pulled it off first try like a total pro, and I couldn't even believe it myself. I grabbed the keycard as fast as possible and ran to the door and got out of there. Before heading into the final section of the game, I picked up the last weapon, the rocket launcher. At this point, the only things I was still missing were the Nemesis weapon parts on hard mode, which I plan to grab later. And honestly, the rocket launcher is completely useless here. I have no idea why the game even gives it to you at this point. We then reach the radio room, where Carlos leaves us a tracker. This tracker shows the distance of the missile, basically our timer to get out of there, and also the countdown until we have to fight the Nemesis one last time. Because yes, this guy is still not dead. On my way to the final boss fight, I picked up the last 2 collectibles, which finally unlocks the bookworm trophy. Since Jill has nothing else to do, she turns on this machine, which is going to help us in a moment. And of course, my dumbass tried to plug in the electric parts before turning it on. I spent a solid 5 minutes thinking my game was broken. Can I get a refund for that time wasted from my life? So what you basically need to do is to push all 3 compartments, then bait Nemesis in front of the railgun, and you have to hit him 3 times to finally trigger the cutscene. And I swear, I think I spent more time fighting this Nemesis here on caution than I did on Elden Ring's Margit boss fight. Just look at this montage. So when I finally beat him, I let Jill Valentine deliver what might be her best one-liner ever, earning me my next trophy.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Carlos was already waiting with a helicopter outside, and honestly, this is how I imagine today's girl standards when it comes to dating. Not that I have much experience or anything, just saying. So we fly away while the city gets completely nuked, and real talk, huge props to the animators, because I actually prefer this ending scene over the remake. And these were my stats for this run, which got me 2 trophies, Survivor for completing it on standard, and I might need these later for not healing more than once. And now we come to the weapon parts. To get these, you need to play on hard difficulty and defeat Nemesis 4 times, because each fight makes him drop a part. And yeah, this turned out to be really challenging. Not only do you have to manage your healing, but also your ammo, which I later realized I was very close to running out of. And on top of that, the second encounter was even much harder than the first one, because Nemesis now got a rocket launcher, which you need to first get rid of. And this was so hard that I couldn't even do it at the first time, so I needed to reload my last save point and do the first encounter again, with now a much better outcome. But at least I got a trophy here for killing 2 zombies with 1 single shot. And also for crafting my first healing item. Once you get rid of the rockets, you need to bait Nemesis into this area and keep shooting him until he goes down. If you want to see the whole strategy in action, check out my other channel 16MB, where I upload long run and uncut videos. Links in the description. For the third encounter, Nemesis has a rocket launcher again. Same idea, make him fire until he's out, then stand on this pallet and take him down. Just be careful, he can still grab you here. Before heading into the 4th and final fight, I went back to collect the rusty crank and picked up those 18 grenade rounds. With those, plus a decent amount of healing items, the last fight shouldn't be a problem now. And honestly, it was easy peasy. But I still didn't trust my PS2 gaming skills, so I went back to save real quick, picked up all my healing items, and then the fight could finally start. And I literally bullied Nemesis for the next 3 minutes, healing after almost every hit and unloading all the grenade rounds I had. So I finally took him down and still had 2 first aid sprays left. But anyway, I built my last weapon, the Western Custom, and got the trophy. There were only 2 more playthroughs left, completing the game on the hardest difficulty with an S rank, and finishing the game without opening the item box, so I decided to go with the later first. It sounds easy, but it's actually much harder than in the remake. You don't have the option to discard items whenever you want to, so you really have to plan your routes carefully. Once you pick something up, you stuck with it until you use it, and one item you can't discard at all is the lockpick. So it's rough, it takes planning, but it's definitely doable. And as you can see, I'm playing on hard difficulty again. Sure, on easy mode you get infinite saves, but the ink ribbon is stored in the item box, which means you'd have to finish the whole round without saving at all. And yeah, I'm not doing that. So the first key item you need to pick up is the lighter fuel, which you combine with the Zippo to burn down the rope on the gate. And yeah, the Zippo is staying in the inventory almost until the very end of the game. Then we pick up the lockpick, which once again, you're basically stuck with it for the entire game. And at this point, you can already see the problem. I'm out of inventory space. So I had to start playing inventory Tetris, using healing items just to get back on fine health, even when it wasn't really needed, just so I could make room and pick up the grenade launcher, for example. I also had to make inventory space for the blue gemstone, which is actually not that bad. At least you can place it immediately and free up the slot again. I needed to pick up the crowbar to reach the green gemstone, which opened up the next area, and this is the area where once again you need to collect the 4 items to repair the tram. But first I needed the wrench, because it's required for 2 different things. For unlocking the garage and for unlocking the fire hose. As you can see, I'd already picked up 2 more key items, the cable and the crank. And luckily both of them can be placed right away, so they don't take up inventory space anymore. I used the stone tablet at the statue to get the battery, which I immediately placed where it belongs. And honestly, I don't even know why you'd hide a battery inside a statue behind the puzzle in the first place, but okay. At this point I was actually hesitating whether to pick up the Magnum at all, since I barely had any ammo left. In the end I decided not to, and grabbed the fuse instead, and got out of there. Before using it on the tram, I grabbed the fire hose, which finally let me get rid of both the hose and the wrench afterward. I also picked up the 18 grenade rounds, and as you can see I didn't load all of it in the grenade launcher. This is intentional, because with that I can make acid rounds or fire rounds. On the way back I also picked up some powder B, because I had the space, and these were useful for acid rounds, which are really powerful. And in the clock tower area Carlos also gives us some freeze rounds, and I then collected a key which I used on the clock tower at the top. And at this point I was completely out of ink ribbons, which meant I couldn't save anymore. And since I really wanted to touch some grass after about 2.5 hours of one-sitting Nemesis, I did what any sane person would do. I looked it up online. Turns out you can find ink ribbons in the clock tower in a drawer in the small library. So shout out to that one random guy on the internet. You genuinely saved me from completely losing my mind. I picked up the gear, which I needed to combine before using it. After that I grabbed some mine rounds, because once we finish the Carlos section, we'll be leaving this area with some mine thrower anyway. And now we get to control Carlos again. And his area is rather simple, because he doesn't have a lot of inventory space, but he doesn't need to pick up a lot of items either. We need a key for this door to get the safe combination, which holds the vaccine base. After that we pick up the culture medium, put it into the machine, and once we get the antidote, I combined it to bring it back to Jill Valentine. And that's it, that's how simple it is. And if you really want to see just how much I actually sweated for this trophy, you can watch the entire 5-hour run completely uncut on my other channel 16MB, links in the description again. I did some inventory management and picked up the mine thrower before leaving, but to get to the park area, you need to open the gate with a key, and I had no inventory space left. So I emptied a few rounds into the zombies guarding the gate just to make room, picked up the key and opened the gate, and so we are in the new area again. And this is where I get the taste of just how much of a piece of shit the mine thrower actually is. I mean, what the hell was happening here actually? Look at this, man, come on. I finally arrived at the wooden shack where I could finally get rid of the Zippo. But of course, there was a catch. I had to pick up another key item which unlocks the second gate to the underground facility. And before I could do that, I had to fight Golddigger again. So I opened the gate and went straight to the facility. Inside the umbrella facility, I had to pick up a few key items. The laboratory key and the diskette, for example. When I finally reached the boss area, I thought I'd quickly insert the diskette to free up some inventory space and grab more ammo in the safe room. Turns out, Jill Valentine immediately jumps into the fight the moment you insert the disc. And since I was already low on ammo, there was no way I was beating this fight on the first try. Not like on easy mode. So yeah, back down I went straight to the hunters again. This time, I actually learned from my mistake. I crafted more ammo first and saved the game before retrying the fight. And even then, this boss fight was rough. Even with the enhanced ammo and the grenade rounds, it still wasn't enough to take down Nemesis. So I had to use the acid mechanic. But Nemesis isn't stupid. He literally waited until the acid disappeared and then moved in. And not even talking about the hitboxes of the levers. At this point I was completely losing my mind. Still, after way too many attempts, honestly I don't even know how many, I finally managed to beat this guy. And with that fight finished, the game was basically over. I cleared the final section, sat through the credits, and finally got my trophy. And with that done, there was only one more run between me and the Platinum. The Inferno S rank run. Now here is where it gets interesting. Because in the original game, getting an S rank isn't just about the time. It's a point system. You get points for saves, time and healing. 0 saves gives you 100 points, under 2.5 hours gives you another 100, and low healing gives you another 100. To get the A rank, which is equivalent to the S rank in the remake, you need 270 in total. So you can either do a no heal run where you save 2 or 3 times getting the 270 points, or you can do heavy healing with absolutely no saves, also getting you 270 points. So the question was, do I follow the remake rules or do I respect the original? Because in the remake you need to complete the game under 2 hours, which is much quicker than the OG's requirement. but you can also save 5 times. But saving 5 times in the OG doesn't give you the A rank. So I decided that if I'm going to do this properly, I'm doing it the original way. For this run I was only allowed to save 3 times in total, and when I realized Jill was poisoned, I decided to use my first save at the clock tower, even though I didn't want to save that early. And thank God I did, because I died here. And much more deaths to follow. On the second attempt, it was close, but I managed to finish him off and reach the cardless section. And of course, RNG wasn't on my side. I got hunters. They caught me off guard and I rage quit. I literally turned off my PS2 and walked away for a bit because I was sent all the way back to the clock tower again. But the next area? That's where the real headache started. Hunters again. I was so scared of losing more progress that I used my third and final save down here. Which meant every time I died at Nemesis later, I'd have to go through both zombies and hunters again. And guess what? Of course I died like 7 times in total. So that was a nightmare. But eventually I could beat him and got to the last boss fight. On the last fight, I even dropped to danger after getting hit by Nemesis acid spit. It was so tense, I was literally shaking, and when the cutscene finally played, I felt relief. For about 2 minutes, because I still didn't know if I had actually secured the S rank. Then the result screen appeared and it showed it. A rank, which is basically the S rank. It was finally over, right? Well, the sharp-eyed viewers might have noticed that the platinum didn't pop yet. That's because he was still 1 trophy missing, completing the game under 2 hours. So once and for all I jumped back into this masterpiece and did that run on easy. And I genuinely thought my pace was much better this time, but somehow I only shaved off 1 minute. 1 minute. I tried it twice, and look, I'm not a speedrunner, not even in real life. I tend to get a little slow at work as well, but I refused to accept that I was so slow in this game. So I started thinking, and then it hit me. This game has around 30-45 minutes of raw unskippable cutscenes according to Google. And that's not even counting the 10 and 15 minutes of pure door opening animations. Now here's the thing, this trophy is based on the remake's rules. And in the remake you can skip cutscenes. So if you remove all the cutscenes and all the door opening loading screens, my actual gameplay time comes down to around 1 hour 30, which is a sub 2 hour run. So here's the trophy. And with that finally done, the platinum was mine. So what are my thoughts on the game? Well, they are mixed. There were moments where I genuinely loved it, and moments where I was ready to give up, not just on the run, but on the whole channel idea. So if you respect the grind, drop a like and subscribe. But one thing's for sure, I'm not touching Resident Evil 3 again for a very long time. One question remains. Silent Hill 2 or Resident Evil 2 next? Tell me in the comments.